Hi viewers, welcome to Deep Dive America. Today we're diving into a critical question. Iran's nuclear program 2025. Is America at risk of war? As headlines heat up, Iran's nuclear ambitions are once again making waves across the globe. Tensions are rising. Military drills are intensifying. Diplomats are scrambling to prevent escalation. And the world is watching, wondering, are we on the edge of another major conflict? In this episode, we uncover what Iran is really building, how the U.S. is preparing, and whether a full-scale crisis is just around the corner. Stay with us. The truth might be more urgent than you think. Iran's nuclear journey began in the 1950s when the U.S. helped Iran develop nuclear technology through the Atoms for Peace program. However, after the 1979 Islamic Revolution, relations soured and suspicion replaced cooperation. In the early 2000s, the world learned about secret Iranian nuclear facilities, sparking concerns that Iran was pursuing nuclear weapons. In 2015, the Iran Nuclear Deal, or Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, was signed between Iran and world powers. The deal was designed to limit Iran's nuclear activities in exchange for lifting international sanctions. However, in 2018, President Trump withdrew the U.S. from the agreement, calling it the worst ever. Since then, Iran has progressively increased its uranium enrichment activities, escalating tensions and leading to the current standoff over its nuclear program. As of 2025, Iran has pushed its uranium enrichment capabilities to the critical 90% purity level, what's considered weapons grade. This is a major red flag for many in the international community, signaling that Iran is crossing a line toward potentially developing nuclear weapons. The International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, has raised alarms about the situation, reporting limited access to Iranian nuclear facilities. The agency's inspectors have expressed deep concerns over the lack of transparency, which complicates efforts to ensure Iran is sticking to its commitments. Despite this, Iran continues to insist that its nuclear program is strictly for peaceful purposes. Tehran argues that its goal is to develop nuclear energy and conduct medical research, not to build nuclear weapons. However, this claim is met with skepticism by many, given the dual-use nature of the technology involved. The same technology used for generating nuclear power, or for medical applications, like producing isotopes, is nearly identical to the technology used for weapons production. This overlap is what makes the situation so volatile and difficult to resolve. For years, this tension has remained unresolved, with the potential for miscalculations or escalation always looming. The international community is faced with the challenge of verifying Iran's intentions, while Iran views the nuclear program as crucial for its energy needs and national security. The lack of clear, independent verification and Iran's insistence on expanding its nuclear activities continue to fuel concerns over the true nature of its ambitions, making this one of the most complex and sensitive geopolitical issues today. The United States' response to Iran's nuclear advancements has been complex and cautious. The Biden administration has made attempts to revive the Iran nuclear deal, aiming to get Iran back in compliance with the agreement. However, these talks have stalled, leaving the U.S. with limited options. Within the U.S. itself, Congress is deeply divided. Some members push for continued diplomacy, advocating for dialogue and negotiation, while others demand stronger actions, including more forceful measures to curb Iran's nuclear program. On the ground, the Pentagon has significantly increased its presence in the region. U.S. forces have been conducting joint military drills with Israel and have deployed advanced missile defense systems across the Gulf. This buildup is described by officials as deterrence, signaling the U.S. is ready to protect its allies and prevent any threats from Iran or others. But critics argue that this military presence could be seen as provocation, heightening tensions rather than reducing them. This raises the crucial question: how long can this balancing act last? The U.S. is walking a fine line between diplomacy and military readiness, trying to manage an increasingly volatile situation without tipping into conflict. With both sides holding firm in their positions, The future of this delicate equilibrium remains uncertain, and the risk of escalation is ever present. While the U.S. focuses on diplomacy, Israel has made it clear that it won't wait for Iran to develop a nuclear weapon. Israel has repeatedly warned that it will take any necessary action to prevent Iran from acquiring nuclear weapons, and they've backed this threat with a series of covert operations. These include cyber attacks targeting Iran's nuclear centrifuges and the assassination of key nuclear scientists. This quiet shadow war is Israel's way of weakening Iran's nuclear program without direct military confrontation. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated, "We will do whatever it takes to stop Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons," signaling Israel's unwavering resolve. But the real question is, if Israel were to launch a direct military strike on Iran's nuclear facilities, would the United States be drawn into a larger conflict? The U.S. has strong ties with Israel and has committed to supporting its security, but such an escalation could pull the U.S. into a broader, potentially dangerous regional conflict, complicating an already tense situation. The world would be watching closely to see if Israel's actions provoke a larger military confrontation involving the U.S. and other regional powers. If a U.S.-Iran war were to break out in 2025, experts warn it would be catastrophic with far-reaching consequences. Iran has significant missile capabilities and could retaliate with strikes across the region, targeting U.S. military bases, Israeli cities, and critical infrastructure. One of the most worrying scenarios is the disruption of global oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz, a vital choke point for the world's oil supply. Iran could block or damage shipping lanes, sending oil prices skyrocketing and causing massive disruptions to global markets. The economic fallout would be severe, with energy prices soaring, potentially causing inflation and widespread financial instability. The global supply chain could be thrown into chaos, impacting everything from manufacturing to food distribution. The ripple effect would likely be felt across the globe, especially in countries heavily reliant on energy imports. But the consequences wouldn't end there. A direct conflict between the U.S. and Iran could trigger a broader regional war, pulling in allies and adversaries from all sides. This could involve countries like Saudi Arabia, Iraq, and others in the Middle East, as well as global powers with stakes in the region's stability. With alliances and rivalries already strained, the conflict could spiral into something much larger, making the stakes of any military action incredibly high. The potential for a wider, more destructive war would be a key factor in any decision to engage militarily, with consequences that could reshape the entire region and the world's geopolitical landscape. Despite the rising tensions, war is not inevitable. Behind the scenes, back-channel negotiations are still ongoing, with European nations pushing both Iran and the U.S. to de-escalate. Iran's economy is struggling under heavy sanctions, and many inside the country are increasingly seeking peace, not war. In the U.S., there's also significant war weariness after 2 decades of military involvement in the Middle East. The public has little appetite for another prolonged conflict. While the risks of escalation are real, there's still a window for diplomacy, if both sides can find a way to negotiate and prioritize peaceful solutions. The situation is fragile, but with cooler heads and continued diplomatic efforts, it's possible to avoid the worst-case scenario. Iran's nuclear program remains one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the world today. Is America at risk of war? Yes, but not without warning signs. The future depends on choices made in Washington, Tehran, and Tel Aviv, and how far each is willing to go. What do you think? Is war on the horizon, or can peace still be achieved? Let us know in the comments.